Okay. It's one thing to know that if you lay on the railroad tracks and the 5 o'clock train comes by, there's a good chance that the train isn't going to have time to stop and run over you. It's another thing to actually see the country run over by the train. And that has now happened. And the country can still be rescued. It can still be salvaged. But it's going to take identifying the culprits of the pickle that we're in. We are going into planned, controlled receivership and demolition. Now, our economic experts said this in '99 on the show when they got rid of the Glass-Steagall Act, when the trillions, thousands of trillions now in derivatives were sold to the world, when your pension funds and your government investments and your private investments were all tied to it through duplicitous fraud by the 6 big mega banks. And just as you've seen in Greece, just as you've seen in Ireland, just as you've seen in many other countries, the very same players, very same families, very same banks have positioned this. I mean, you don't sell this fraud and then not have the politicians in your pocket or you go to jail. But by getting their people in the last few decades into all the regulatory positions in European and the U.S. and Canada, Australia, New Zealand, it's all the same, by getting their politicians into power and their former employees in as finance ministers of every major government. England, Ireland, Scotland, Germany, France, Greece, it's all J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, and a few others. And, of course, all of those banks heavily Rothschild-owned. N.M. Rothschild heavily involved as well. But overall, there's less than 10 major players, and they're all interconnected, and there's 6 big horsemen that are up front, and then a few spinoffs. This is economic warfare. We are being conquered. They've sold you that we're going into this implosion because of $14.5 trillion of debt. Well, depending on whose numbers you look at, whether it's Bloomberg's $27 trillion, we haven't got new numbers in a year, or the latest congressional reports where they finally admitted, okay, $16 trillion to foreign and private banks, $16 trillion, $27 trillion, whatever. The point is, there's your entire national deficit right there. Now, they're telling us raise taxes, cut benefits, and that will fix the global too-big-to-fail crisis, which is 1.5 quadrillion. And I know I beat this horse every day because it's the same problem it was yesterday and last month and a year ago. It is mathematically impossible to pay it back, A. B, we don't owe it. And C, the very fraudsters that have positioned us into this situation, the very fraudsters that have positioned us are now posing as our saviors. And it's either us or them. So we're reaching the critical juncture. They had to have the, quote, debt deal, which had nothing to do with raising the debt limit, a routine operation, to smokescreen that the deal itself was the big issue. And that's in the news today. That I'm going to get to the reports where the bankers are bragging that they hid this thing in plain view and that it's a total takeover. And they're setting up a new Marshall Plan domestic receivership bank to pose as the saviors through the rural councils and the rest of it to take over the towns, the cities, the counties, the states that are now having their debt downgraded as well. Exactly as we told you. Now, remember, in 2002, it's not hard to tell you this. It's not a crystal ball. The IMF World Bank documents, 2,000-plus pages, got leaked right at the time Joseph Stiglitz left. Magically, he says he didn't leak them and then giggles. The Nobel Prize winner for economics. Right when those documents got released, the BBC, Greg Palast, and others reported they are imploding the third world by design, economic hitmen. They're going to do it in the West next. And so for 11 years, I have known the plan. I have warned you. I've done everything I could. It's not enough for these monopoly men to create unlimited trillions that for themselves they get to buy up. They infect all the other instruments, financial instruments, so they can destroy the economy. Then they're flush with the fiat instruments and can buy it all up. This is war against the middle class. I saw a bumper sticker this morning that said, I'm glad at least the war on the middle class is going well. You know, or at least the war on the middle class is going well. Now, here is the financial news. You know, gold's over 1,700. Even though we're in a depression in the real economy with inflation laid on top of it, it's so bad, the inflation's so bad that even though the system is trying to use a depression in the real economy to hide the massive inflation in the fiat economy, in the parasite economy, gas is exploding, food is exploding, silver, gold, every commodity is going up, 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 up. But because the White House tells you there's no inflation, everything's fine. The Washington Times, Democrats seek to pin credit downgrade on Tea Party. And they go over what I covered yesterday, the talking point in the AP, the NBC's Meet the Press, all of them. It was everywhere. As we told you they would do. They're saying now it's not the Federal Reserve, it's not Goldman Sachs, it's not the 1,000+ trillion in garbage they created, it's not the welfare state, it's not the military-industrial complex with trillions a year. It's none of that. It's the Tea Party. And the Tea Party is led by a bunch of establishment Republicans, but they began under the Ron Paul movement and do want to get rid of the Federal Reserve, are pro-Second Amendment, and do want to cut the New World Order down to size. So you are going to be scapegoated for the financial system and the terror attacks they're going to stage. And you can see all the scripting there. When we come back, dollar to be discarded by world, China rating agency said. China tells U.S. good old days of borrowing are over, talking to us like they're our boss. And they are our boss. They're the muscle for the bankers. We're going to break it all down straight ahead and what the default means. This is only the beginning. I want listeners to listen to me very carefully and let this really sink in. Really sink in. When I get up here and I say that the establishment plans a completely post-industrial, absolutely bankrupt, third world situation with an extremely predatory police state class, that's the only good jobs you're going to be getting in America, is being a government predator. They plan on cutting off the resources, they've stated it, and then having most of the major scholarships and job opportunities be in domestic arrest, torture, you name it. This is a planned conversion of our economy. This isn't just some third world dictator robbing the country, selling out to foreign banks, and looting resources. That's bad enough. This is a ruling elite, a ruling class of social engineers who have written countless white papers that we've covered and linked to at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, who have stated their plan to absolutely bankrupt you. You see, in the third world, most people are rural still and are still able to basically survive. We are in an industrialized system that is having its industrial capacity removed and its service capacity removed, and then we're living in an infrastructure built with high energy use outlays built into it, with a totally spoiled, unself-sufficient population on average, decadent beyond belief. And most of these decadent people are going to turn into the equivalent of vicious, political, ringwraith, vampire, Nosferatu, Nazi-like zombies. They will do whatever they're told by the bankers to get their credit card working again. And they're going to be pointed at those of us that know that this is a designed program. The social engineers are going to stage terror attacks and blame the Tea Party and real conservatives and returning veterans, because we're the people who understand what the New World Order is. Does that mean the whole Tea Party's perfect? No, the globalists attack it to try to infiltrate it and steer it away. But the real Tea Party that sits within the Republican Dick Army Tea Party is under attack. Now, we're going to cover all of the financial angles of this in great detail with Nomi Prinz, Webster Tarpley, and others today. But so many people said, I don't care if we lose our credit rating. How does that affect me? How does the credit of the U.S. matter to me? Or, oh, you know, let the debt limit not go up. Well, if you don't let it go up, you're destroyed. If you do let it go up, you're destroyed. Because we've been signed on to an impossible amount of debt that we don't owe. This is bondage. They're saying, here's this giant ball and chain. Now connect it to your leg and you'll be free. You've got to get rid of the bankers, the globalists, the inner coterie. Not your local bank, but the big boys, the Warren Buffetts, the David Rockefellers, the Lord Rothschilds. They sit around bragging. Now, the good news is their carbon tax is in trouble. That's what they plan to fund this thing. So now they're shifting to global VAT and Tobin taxes on money transfers and wellhead taxes on oil. So the good news is we can discredit and expose these people if we have the fighting spirit. And that means every one of you has got to get the word out like your life depends on it. And I don't care what bumper stickers you get, but you need to get them on your car. It starts with something small. You need to call into talk radio today. Now, I don't mean my show. I mean some mainline dumbbell show, because they're all peer pressure driven. Enough of you call, they'll start getting religion, which they're starting to do. You need to call Congress. Not that they don't know they're criminals, but to let them know you know they're criminals. You've got to call the members of the new super Congress they're getting ready to announce and let them know that you see them and know who they are and know what they stand for. You need to get a buzz going, even greater than it is now, that the problem isn't Obama, even though it's fun to hate him, and the problem isn't Boehner, even though it's fun to hate him. They're both disgusting political prostitute liars. They're, though, just puppets. I'm not going after Zeb Dietrich. And I'm not going after some SS colonel. I'm going after the Hitler. I'm going after the bankers, the head of the thing. I'm not going after some low-level Soviet. I'm going after Stalin. Identify the Federal Reserve. It's us or them. Now, I'm going to tell you what this debt ratings situation means to the states and your local city when we get back. The bankers have got us just where they want us. We're getting a lot of intel from people in the military, folks known to this operation, others unknown. Some of the sources have been proven accurate time and time again that this is a very, very suspicious with the SEAL team. And we're going to be getting into more of that in just a moment. But briefly, getting back a little bit into the financial news that we'll spend the balance of the broadcast on today after we get into the Navy SEAL situation. As expected, here's the Washington Times. Democrats seek to pin credit downgrade on Tea Party. Well, actually, the Tea Party wanted some real cuts, and that didn't end up happening. And I told you last week when Mitch McConnell, Mr. Super Congress, the globalist Republican, came out and said, hey, this is a victory for the Tea Party. That's like hanging an albatross around your neck. That's like giving you credit for what Jeffrey Dahmer did. And so that was the frame-up. And now they were all over the Sunday news shows everywhere. I got scores of emails saying, hope you're glad, Alex, we've lost our credit rating. We lost our credit rating in reality a decade ago. This country has had a private banking cartel running it into the ground since 1913. And they've positioned us now to fully bankrupt the states, the counties, the cities, the federal government. So we can go under receivership. That's why there's always unlimited, millions of dollars for studies with shrimp on treadmills and bridges to nowhere. It's all about bankrupting this country while giving themselves the contracts. So they transfer the money to themselves on the front end with the contracts and the insider sweetheart deals. And then when you go belly up, they loan you your bailout money back to you at a higher interest rate. And, of course, they're now, I told you weeks ago, I said, we're going to lose the credit downgrade in the next few months. Then we'll start going from AAA to AA plus to AA, right down to C. They're gutting this country. And they're just testing, blaming it on the American people, getting you to buy into the guilt and blaming their enemy, libertarian, conservative, constitutionalist. That's the only group that halfway knows what's going on, who doesn't like the Federal Reserve, who wants the Second Amendment, who wants national sovereignty. The system loves the well-meaning, bleeding heart Democrats that believe that polar bears can't swim and Al Gore